We tend to think of childhood as something we outgrow, a box of old photographs, a few scars that fade with enough birthdays, something maturity is supposed to quietly erase. Carl Jung didn't see it that way at all. He argued that a child doesn't just live on in your memory, it lives on in your psyche as an active force, still shaping how you think, choose, love, and self-sabotage decades after the actual childhood ended. Jung called this the child archetype, and the key word is archetype. He wasn't talking about nostalgia. He was talking about a structure in the unconscious, as real in his framework as any organ in the body, that carries two things at once. On one side, wonder, spontaneity, creativity, the capacity to be delighted by the world. On the other, your oldest wounds, abandonment, being dismissed, being made to feel too much or not enough. Jung's clinical observation was blunt. Much of adult suffering isn't caused by what's happening now. It's the echo of an unmet child still running the show from underneath. Here's the part that trips people up. This isn't about being immature. The adult who explodes over a minor criticism, who can't say no, who feels invisible in every relationship no matter how many people love them, that's not a character flaw. That's a wounded child steering from the passenger seat while the adult thinks they're driving. And Jung's answer wasn't fix the child. It was recognize the child. Give it a legitimate seat inside your own psyche instead of locking it out. He believed real growth doesn't come from silencing this part of you. It comes from building what he called an internal parental function, the capacity to care for yourself from the inside the way a good parent would. Not by repressing the pain, by finally listening to it. 3 faces, 1 archetype. Jung didn't treat the inner child as one flat thing. In his clinical work, he kept running into it wearing different masks, each with its own logic and its own damage. The wounded child carries the actual injuries, neglect, ridicule, violence, being told your feelings were an inconvenience. This is the part that learned early that needing something was dangerous. So now, as an adult, you flinch from vulnerability, read rejection into silence, and can't fully trust anyone, even the people who've earned it. The eternal child, what Jung called the puer aeternus, runs the opposite play. Instead of hiding from pain, it hides from responsibility. It craves novelty, resents routine, avoids commitment, and treats adulthood itself like a trap. Jung didn't view this as laziness. He saw it as childhood energy that never found a mature outlet, so it keeps circling, looking for one. The divine child is the one most people never meet because it's usually buried under the other two. This is your raw, creative, and spiritual core, the part still capable of awe, insight, and genuine compassion. It doesn't get destroyed by pain. It just goes quiet, waiting for enough safety to come back out. Most of us, Jung thought, spend most of our lives run by the first one, reacting to the present from a place of old scarcity. We look for the parent we never had in our partners. We take feedback as an indictment. We recreate the exact dynamics we swore we'd never repeat. None of that is weakness. It's an archetype operating without a witness. The masks we build instead of doing the work. Long before anyone hands you the language of inner child, you're taught which parts of yourself are acceptable. Crying is weak. Needing things is shameful. Sensitivity is a liability. So you build a self that can survive the room, competent, unbothered, self-sufficient, and you spend your energy maintaining it instead of tending to what's underneath it. Jung's read on this was that repression doesn't erase pain, it just relocates it. Anger you won't feel becomes anxiety you can't explain. A need you won't name becomes a compulsion you can't control. What gets pushed down doesn't vanish. It resurfaces sideways as addiction, as self-sabotage, as a body that keeps getting sick at suspiciously convenient times. The masks themselves tend to fall into familiar shapes. The overfunctioner, who takes care of everyone and no one takes care of them, often driven by a child who learned love was conditional on usefulness. The invulnerable one, who needs nobody and never cracks, built by a child who was forced to grow up faster than was fair. The high achiever, chasing a scoreboard that was never going to satisfy the parent who set it, because that parent may never have been paying attention in the first place. Every one of these masks was a survival strategy once. The cost is that the gap between the mask and the actual self keeps widening, and the emptiness on the other side of that gap doesn't respond to more achievement, more scrolling, or more distraction. It responds to being noticed. Becoming your own good parent. So what do you actually do with a wounded part of yourself that's been running quietly in the background for 30, 40, 50 years? Jung's answer was reparenting, not therapy speak for think happy thoughts about your childhood, but the deliberate work of becoming today the steady adult that younger version of you needed and didn't get. Not reliving the past, building a real relationship with the part of you that's still stuck there. Practically, that starts with listening, not the analytical kind that tries to explain the pain away, but the kind that just lets it be there without rushing to fix it. The wounded child isn't asking to be corrected. It's asking to be believed. It also means setting boundaries you've probably never set before, including with yourself. A lot of self-destructive behavior is the wounded child looking for love in the same broken places it learned to look as a kid, in relationships that require you to shrink, in the approval of strangers online, in anyone who'll offer a temporary hit of being seen. Saying no to that isn't rejection, it's protection. And it means practicing basic emotional self-regulation, the unglamorous stuff, breathing through a spike of anxiety instead of numbing it, talking to yourself the way you'd talk to an actual frightened kid instead of the way you were talked to, leaving a room, a relationship, or a job that's hurting you, even when leaving is uncomfortable. Small, repeated proof that you're not going to abandon yourself again. Do this consistently, and something shifts. The reactivity softens because there's finally an adult in the room. The compulsive need to fill the emptiness fades because the emptiness is being addressed at the source instead of papered over. And strangely, the parts of you that atrophied under all that self-protection, curiosity, creativity, the willingness to actually want things, start to come back online. What's actually on the other side? This isn't really about fixing something broken. It's about ending a very long silence. The wounded child was never asking to be eliminated. It was asking to stop being ignored. Once it's heard, it stops needing to sabotage you to get your attention, because sabotage was never the goal. It was the only language available. What comes after that isn't loud. It's quieter than people expect, less like a breakthrough and more like exhaling after holding your breath for years. Reactivity gives way to steadiness. The chronic ache of not enough gives way to something closer to presence. And the part of you Jung called the divine child, the one built for wonder instead of survival, finally gets room to show up. Jung thought the child archetype represented wholeness itself, the state before we split ourselves into the self we perform and the self we hide. Reconnecting the two isn't about becoming someone new. It's about no longer needing two different people to get through the day. That's the real invitation here. Not to relive your childhood, but to finally show up for it. To be the adult who says plainly and without flinching, "I see you. I'm not going anywhere." That sentence, repeated enough times, is where the healing actually happens. What moment in your life made you realize your inner child needed someone? Share it below. It might be exactly what someone else reading this needs to hear.